Ice cream or a taco. Lots of waving opportunities here on the walking mall. Now you'll notice that the buildings are getting a little bit older here on our right side. We are getting closer to the first gold find here in Helena. This building we're passing on the right, they used to have children's dance lessons on the second floor there. Some people say you can still hear them at night. Now, do you guys remember Governor Hauser? He's the guy who gave his daughter a mansion for her wedding present. If you look on this corner to my left, that terracotta colored building, this was his bank. And I guess he really wanted to leave his print here on Helena. So if you look at those two arched windows there that are facing you, there's a circle just between them in the stone. That is Governor Hauser's fingerprint. He had it carved into the side of his building. So that's either really awesome or a big fat ego, or both, I guess. It does make for a great story on the tour train though. This brick building on the left is the Placer. When they built this and they started digging for it, they found enough gold in those diggings to pay for the entire hotel. So those were some very happy investors, I'm sure. It was a really fancy hotel. JFK stayed there as well as Mark Twain.
Nice.
It's kind of embarrassing. Mark Twain was here for a stop on his speaking tour, but Helenans thought he was just a little bit too lowbrow for them. So this was one of his least attended stops on his speaking tour, which is a pretty embarrassing fact. Do some sluice box miners. There was a lot of that going on here on the Gulch back in the 1860s and 70s. Oh no, I think we've split up some friends here. Now this restaurant to our left is the Windbag Saloon. Big Dorothy ran her establishment here until the mid-1970s. Hello everyone.
Look at that. Old trolley.
Now we are coming towards the end of the mall here. Hello. This last building on our right, it's called the Caldwell Building. This is a great example of a building. It's still the exact dimensions of the original mining claim that was on this site. They just built it straight up. And the parking lot of this building right here is where they think the 4Gs first found gold here in Helena. So this is our initial strike site. Gonna get quiet for a second here. This is a tough turn.
Today is a parking lot.
Oh, we're totally good. So on your left is our city library. If you look at the entrance, you'll see a really cool stone bison head. He has a great story. So there was a guy named Broadwetter. He was kind of one of our founding fathers, and he wanted to build a huge bank out here. His friends told him that was stupid. Don't do it, it's foolish. Helena was gonna boom and bust like every other Montana gold town. And if he built his big fancy bank, there would be grass growing in just a few months. Well, he said he didn't think that was gonna happen, but if grass started growing, he'd herd bison in to chew it off for him. So when he built the bank, he included that stone bison head at the top, just to prove he didn't think he would need it. And lucky for us, he was totally right. You're getting up on your right. This was built in 1864. It's one of our oldest buildings still left in Helena. Now just past this cabin is Reader's Alley. It's all made of red brick. Lewis Reader moved out here from Pennsylvania to find gold and make his fortune. He did not find gold or make his fortune though, so he went back to his original profession, which was brick masonry, and he built Reader's Alley. It's open to the public. You can walk down there anytime. It's kind of a neat place. The miners generally only rented there during the winter though. During the summer months, they had to camp right on top of their mining claims, or they risked claim jumpers coming and stealing them. Now this section of town to my left, including that big 70s building in the back there. This was Helena's Chinatown. You would not get to look at us today, but at one point this county was 20% Chinese, so 1 out of every 5. They had a lot to do with our origins. They owned businesses, they helped in our mines, they helped when the railroad came out here. They had some really great greenhouses. They even had 2 of their very own newspapers out here in Helena. We also used to have a newspaper called the Colored Citizen, and we were able to support an entire synagogue. None of those things are true anymore. We are not a super diverse place.
Park.
Passing a mountain biker on the back there. Now just on the other side of this ridge was the nightlife section of town. So if you needed a drink, there was 1 square block here that had over 20 bars. Also, you can imagine the male to female ratios weren't super favorable back then. So this is where you would go to seek female companionship. Is that what we should call it? In this section of town. Ironically enough, this is also where our police station was located. So they were doing their job, I'm sure. Straight ahead of us on this hill is our fire tower. We sometimes call her the guardian of the gulch. Fire was a really big deal in Helena in our early days. We had huge problems with it. They think the town of Helena broke down 6 or 7 times when those miners were mining. In fact, even our fire tower burnt down once. How embarrassing is that? We had a hotel called the International at the time, and people started jokingly referring to it as a phoenix or the Phoenix, because it kept having to rise from Helena's ashes over and over again. It's tucked kind of just behind this church here. This was our assay office. So the miners would bring their gold here, the government would pay them for it, and then they would melt it into gold bars and ship it back to the feds. This next stone building that we're coming up on to our left was built in the 1880s as our county courthouse. Now we still use it as a courthouse today. It used to have a really big, pretty clock tower on the top, but the earthquake took the clock tower down, sadly. Davis Street. So I want you guys to look right up Davis Street. The miners used to call this Dry Gulch back in our mining days. So it's right here for me. Now there's not much to look at now, but in the 1860s, you would be looking at our hangman's tree. Hello everyone! When we first discovered gold here, there was no legitimate law force, and there were a lot of vigilantes. So they would just take care of their own problems. They think that between 10 and 14 men were hung on that hangman's tree. They called them necktie parties. Now in 1870, the real law showed up. They put an end to all of that. Then in 75, a reverend owned the land at this point. And he said he was worried about the roots. They were starting to rot out. He thought it was going to fall over and crush his barn. So he hired a guy to start chopping it down. Now this guy started working, and people began lining up to watch him chop it down, which is kind of weird, but he let it go. Then the line started stretching around the block. They couldn't even see him anymore, so he asked someone what was happening. Apparently everybody had been lining up to get a piece of the hangman's tree for a souvenir. How creepy is that? I feel like that's a surefire way to get a ghost in your house. Just pick up a hangman's tree. Now many decades later, when they were excavating for the modern homes that sit there now, they ran into a lot of very large, very healthy hangman's tree roots. So apparently, the Reverend did not have a root problem so much as a creepy tree problem. So it was in 1935. We had just dedicated our big fancy new high school in September. Then we had a lot of tremors. And in October, the big earthquake hit. It was a 6.3 earthquake that hit us dead on. It was really interesting though. Our railroad district and Catholic Hill, almost every building had some sort of damage from that earthquake. But the Mansion district barely felt it. We were really lucky. Only 2 people died in that initial quake. That night, the high school was practicing for a play, and the teacher just felt like he should wrap things up early that night. So he sent everyone home. He locked the building up. A half hour later, woo, yeehaw! The earthquake hit and reduced our new, big, pretty high school building to rubble. So we're really glad that only 2 people ended up dying. Now we did not have a high school anymore, so we had to borrow some railroad cars, and we had high school in the railroad cars for the rest of the school year. I'm imagining they probably canceled for January. It's too cold to have school in a railroad car in January. I was reading a really funny article by a guy in 1936. He was proposing that we change the name of Helena to Lena because we just had the hell shaken out of us, so we should take it out of our name too.
That's cool. Look at that house.
So we're gonna come up on the Capitol building again here. And when we do, I want you guys to take special notice of the statue on top. Now when we planned our original Capitol building, it was gonna be big and expensive and make a huge statement. So we hired some guys and they got to work. But not very far into it, we realized that a lot of these guys had big plans to take that budget and put it right in their pockets. So we started to investigate. These guys got all the paperwork together that had to do with the Capitol building, and they burnt all of it. So, innocent, obviously. Well, we couldn't prosecute anymore, but we did fire them all. We planned a smaller, more modest Capitol that you see today, and hired a new set of guys to start working on it. So they got to work, and midway through the project, that statue you see at the top showed up at our railroad station. She too came without any paperwork, so we didn't know where she had come from, who had ordered her, what she was for. But we were working on our Capitol, and she's gorgeous, so we stuck her on top. Now we call her Lady Liberty. Once we get to the other side, you'll see she has a torch. It kind of makes sense. Now, a few years ago, a lady contacted our historical society. Her grandpa had passed, and in his papers, she found some stuff about a statue he created for the state of Montana. We got really excited, had her send that all out to us. In one of those papers was a newspaper article. He was saying that she was some of his very best work, and that he had named her Montana after the beautiful state he created her for. Embarrassing, we called her the wrong name for 100 years, and she was on our Capitol building. So we do now call her Montana, as she was originally christened. And we're very happy to know she ended up right where she was intended. We are wrapping the tour up now. I'm going to drop you off here at the museum.